It was supposed to be precision justice delivered on Christmas Day. President Donald Trump had promised American Christians that he would protect their brothers and sisters in Nigeria from what he called an existential threat of Islamic terrorism. On December 25th, 2025, he kept that promise, or so he claimed. What actually happened in the quiet Muslim farming village of Jabo tells a very different story. At approximately 10 p.m. on Christmas night, SULEIMAN KAGARA heard a sound he had never heard before. A loud blast echoed across the sky, followed by the unmistakable whoosh of something massive cutting through the air. He looked up and saw flames, a projectile trailing fire as it screamed overhead. Moments later, the ground shook as the missile exploded on impact, sending debris flying in all directions. "We couldn't sleep last night," Kagara told CNN the following day, his voice still shaking. "We've never seen anything like this before." He had no idea that what he'd witnessed was part of a United States military operation, or that the president would soon be bragging about it as a Christmas present. The missile debris landed just meters from Jabo's only medical clinic. 5 civilians were wounded by flying shrapnel. In another area, Offa in Kwara State, 4 buildings were damaged. Farmland was destroyed. Crops ruined just before harvest. For a community depending on agriculture for survival, the economic damage was devastating. What the villagers didn't know was that Trump had deliberately delayed the operation by 1 day so it would fall on Christmas. "They were going to do it earlier," Trump later told Politico, with evident satisfaction. "And I said, well, nope, let's give a Christmas present." They didn't think that was coming, but we hit them hard. Every camp got decimated. At 9:39 p.m. Eastern Time on December 25th, Trump posted his announcement on Truth Social. "Tonight, at my direction as Commander-in-Chief, the United States launched a powerful and deadly strike against ISIS terrorist scum in northwest Nigeria, who have been targeting and viciously killing, primarily, innocent Christians at levels not seen for many years and even centuries." He continued, "I have previously warned these terrorists that if they did not stop the slaughtering of Christians, there would be hell to pay. And tonight, there was." Then came the line that would define the operation. "May God bless our military, and Merry Christmas to all, including the dead terrorists, of which there will be many more if their slaughter of Christians continues. Merry Christmas to the dead terrorists." It was a statement so callous that even some Trump supporters found it distasteful. But Trump was playing to his base, delivering tough guy rhetoric. He was the protector of Christians worldwide, striking back at Islamic extremists. It was a powerful narrative, and it was almost entirely false. The United States Africa Command confirmed strikes in Sokoto State in coordination with Nigerian authorities. The Pentagon released dramatic video showing missiles launching from what appeared to be a drone. According to AFRICOM, the operation killed multiple ISIS terrorists. But in Jabo, the people who actually lived where the missiles fell told a completely different story. There was no ISIS in their village. There never had been. The community was predominantly Muslim, but that didn't make them terrorists. Christians lived peacefully among them. The local Catholic Church had never been attacked. There had been no religious violence, no kidnappings, no terrorist activity whatsoever. "This is a peaceful farming creek community," one village elder told CNN. "We don't know why America would attack us. We have Christians here, Muslims here, we all live together. There is no ISIS, no terrorism. This is a lie." Nigerian officials scrambled to explain what had happened. The Information Ministry acknowledged that the government had collaborated with the United States to conduct precision strike operations targeting ISIS hideouts in forests. But then came the damaging admission. During the course of the operation, debris from expended munitions fell in Jabo. The statement claimed no civilian casualties, immediately contradicted by reports of 5 wounded civilians. Foreign Minister Yusuf Tuggar went even further, directly contradicting Trump's characterization. Speaking to Nigeria's Channels Television, Tuggar confirmed he had spoken with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio before the strike. Nigerian President Bola Tinubu had given approval. But Tuggar was adamant. This was not about protecting Christians from Muslims. Nigeria is a multi-religious country, Tuggar explained. We're working with partners like the U.S. to fight terrorism and protect lives and property. The strikes were aimed at terrorist groups that target both Muslim and Christian communities. The narrative of Christian persecution that Trump had been promoting was a dangerous oversimplification. The reality is that Nigeria does face serious security problems. Various armed groups operate in different parts of the country, including Boko Haram and ISIS-affiliated splinter groups. One such group, Lakurawa, classified as a terrorist organization, does operate in parts of Sokoto State. It was presumably camps associated with these groups, located in remote forests far from Jabo, that were the intended targets. But characterizing Nigeria's security crisis as primarily religious persecution of Christians is false. Nigeria's defense minister, Christopher Musa, had explained this clearly when Trump first threatened military action in November. Military intervention might address 30% of the conflict, Musa said, but the remaining 70% stems from governance failures, land disputes, ethnic tensions, and competition over resources. The most prevalent violence in northern Nigeria involves clashes between predominantly Christian farmers and largely Muslim herders. As climate change has made land scarcer and populations have grown, these groups increasingly compete for access to land and water. The conflicts are economic and territorial, not theological. Both sides commit violence. Both sides suffer casualties. Framing this as persecution of Christians ignores Muslim victims and oversimplifies a complex problem requiring governance solutions, not military strikes. A Nigerian government official writing in Al Jazeera in October 2025 had tried to explain this. While acknowledging that Christians had suffered horrific attacks, the official noted that a significant portion of the violence stems from long-standing clashes between mostly Christian farmers and largely Muslim herders over land. The conflicts are multifaceted, driven by ethnic rivalries, land disputes, and criminality, with religion often secondary. But Trump wasn't interested in nuance. He needed villains, ISIS, terrorist scum, and victims, innocent Christians facing genocide. The complexity didn't fit on a Truth Social post. The economic and governance dimensions couldn't be reduced to simple good versus evil. Trump's interest in Nigeria had intensified in the months leading up to Christmas. In late October 2025, he began claiming that Christians faced an existential threat and warning of possible military intervention. In November, he threatened to enter Nigeria guns a-blazing to completely wipe out the Islamic terrorists. He ordered the Pentagon to prepare military action plans and threatened to suspend all U.S. aid. The State Department designated Nigeria a country of particular concern for religious freedom violations, triggering potential sanctions. U.S. intelligence agencies began surveillance flights over Nigeria in late November, mapping targets and gathering intelligence. Nigerian President Tinubu found himself in an impossible position. He needed American support, but couldn't allow Trump to dictate Nigerian security policy or perpetuate false narratives. On Christmas Eve, Tinubu called for peace, especially between individuals of differing religious beliefs, and pledged to protect Christians, Muslims, and all Nigerians from violence. The emphasis on all Nigerians was a direct rebuke to Trump's narrative. According to Nigeria's information ministry, the operation involved 16 munitions fired from MQ-9 Reaper drones. The strikes occurred between 12 a.m. and 1:30 a.m. West Africa time on December 26th, just after midnight following Christmas Day. The targets were allegedly 2 ISIS-affiliated sites in the Bounty Forest area of Tangaza district. According to local officials, the strikes did hit Lakurawa camps, killing fighters and forcing others to flee. But debris from these operations fell on Jabo and Offa. Whether missile fragments, parts of destroyed structures, or secondary explosions, a U.S. military operation designed to protect civilians ended up damaging civilian property and wounding residents of a peaceful village. The reaction in the United States was deeply divided. Conservative media praised Trump for decisive action. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth framed the operation as part of a campaign to eliminate threats to Christian communities. These narco-terrorists are targeting Christians, and we're not going to stand for it, Hegseth declared. But critics were appalled. Professor Jason Johnson, appearing on MSNBC, suggested the strikes were racially motivated violence. Trump has a pattern of using military force against predominantly black and Muslim countries, Johnson argued. This isn't about protecting Christians. This is about appealing to his base's worst instincts. Legal experts questioned whether the strikes were legal under international law. Nigeria had consented, providing some legal cover. But the targeting methodology and civilian damage raised concerns. Were targets properly vetted? Was intelligence reliable? Were appropriate precautions taken? The Pentagon refused to answer, citing operational security. Human rights organizations called for independent investigations. Amnesty International expressed concern about potential violations of international humanitarian law. The United Nations requested information about the legal basis for the strikes. Experts on Nigeria and the Sahel region were particularly critical. Judd Devermont, President Biden's former national security advisor for African affairs, warned that military strikes alone would never solve Nigeria's problems. Instability in Nigeria will not be reversed overnight by an influx of U.S. resources or by dropping bombs, Devermont said. The root causes, governance failures, economic inequality, ethnic tensions, required long-term political solutions, not military quick fixes. Former U.S. diplomats warned that Trump's framing of the conflict as Christian persecution risked inflaming religious tensions. By casting the situation in religious terms, Trump was potentially creating the very sectarian violence he claimed to be preventing. Muslim Nigerians watching American missiles fall while the U.S. president talked about protecting Christians might conclude that America viewed all Muslims as potential terrorists. The people of Jabo certainly felt that way. Villagers expressed confusion, anger, and fear. They didn't understand why they had been attacked. They didn't know if more strikes were coming. They worried their village would now be associated with terrorism, despite having no connection to ISIS. "We are farmers, not terrorists," one resident said. "We grow crops. We raise animals. We go to market. We pray, some in mosques, some in churches. We are peaceful people." Why does America think we are ISIS? Trump showed no signs of doubt or regret. In the days following the strikes, he continued touting the operation as a success and promised more if the slaughter of Christians continued. He ignored questions about debris hitting Jabo, wounded civilians, or concerns from Nigerian officials. On December 29th, while meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at Mar-a-Lago, Trump defended the operation vigorously. "We're not going to allow the persecution of Christians to continue," Trump declared. "If these terrorists want to keep killing Christians, they're going to keep getting hit. It's that simple." It wasn't that simple, of course. Nothing about Nigeria's security situation was simple, but Trump's worldview didn't have room for complexity. He saw the world in stark binaries, good and evil, us and them, Christians and terrorists. The fact that reality was messier, that conflicts had multiple causes, that violence had many victims, that military strikes sometimes hit wrong targets, didn't fit his narrative. The long-term implications remain unclear. Did the strikes successfully degrade ISIS-affiliated groups? Possibly. But experts noted that militant groups in the Sahel are remarkably resilient.